I remember I've seen so many articles where like, I remember Walmart invented a car seat. I think it's still on the market where if you go to close the door, it will start beeping. Like if your child is in the car seat, it alerts you. There's like the methods I've seen around like put a shoe back there when you put your kid in, because you're not going to wander off too far with one shoe and you're going to notice like, oh, that's off. And I I see those videos posted or those articles, you know, the comment section is always flooded with how can you be so distracted or so off in your own world that you could forget your baby or leave your baby. I'll never understand. I would never leave my baby. And I really think that there's this, so I like to think it doesn't come from a place of shaming. I think it comes from a place of self-preservation and othering people. Because if you think, well, if you tell yourself I could never do it, then you don't have to face the reality that, yeah, you really could quite easily. As humans go into autopilot, and of all the like hot car deaths I've seen with children and things like that, almost all of them is a parent who normally did not do daycare drop off, or something shifted in a routine. Like, oh, yep, we normally did this, but then my schedule changed this morning. And, you know, it's usually the baby had like fallen asleep in the car and then they just went off on autopilot and into work. So all those things that are on the market now that help prevent that as a tragedy, I'm also here for all of those. I'm not here for people who show up to the comment section and say, how could you leave your baby in a car? Like, clearly, people do it each year. And each year, tragically, babies die in hot cars because of typically people being on autopilot, and they grieve and live with that the rest of their lives. Like, oh my gosh, I killed my baby essentially because of this grave error I made. And yeah, I'm all about that. I'm all about the car seats that have the little sensors that are like, hey, forgot your kid, or putting your shoe in the back seat, or whatever you need to do to break that autopilot and to be able to share all the tips. I would love, you know, if people watch our videos, they should share it in the comment section what they do, because I think there's no wrong advice when it comes to that, except for whatever you use to be able to prevent that tragedy. I would agree. So there's my soapbox.
Yeah. We actually, I mean, obviously I'm in a desert and it gets easily over 115 degrees in the summer here, like easy. And it's like that for a long time. And we actually do car seat and car safety stuff with kids every year. A lot of the dealerships do them, the hospitals do them, big time about like leaving your kid in the car. And one of the tips was you put your purse in the back seat next to your baby. So a woman, when she goes, maybe she turns off her key. Oh, gotta grab my purse. Like whatever it is, like how you said shoe. Yeah, I've heard purse. I've had put your groceries in the back seat and not in your trunk, but actually in the back seat so you don't forget. Because once you start like loading up your groceries and stuff like that, like you forget, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it's just one of those like, but I've heard a lot of little tips. They do have really cool car seat things, and it's a little sensor thing that goes, I think maybe underneath your car, like underneath where your steering wheel is. And it like beeps when you get out, it like beeps to let you know, like the seatbelt is buckled. It even will beep like if your kid starts unbuckling, like there's like a bunch of stuff. So it's kind of like, there's a lot of good features of this, like extra, these new technology, you know, car seats and stuff. And we did have that when we had the rainbow, we had the little thing and it went underneath or whatever. And, you know, and I was like, I don't know how it works, but you know, but our thing was a little bit different because we drove kind of as a family for the first little while because we lived 2 hours away from anywhere, from civilization. So one of us rode in the back seat with the baby, entertaining for 2 hours to go grocery shopping. So our life was a little bit different. We didn't forget because we were looking at him the whole time. But if we were here, who knows what would have been, you know, if you're in a city or you're, you know what I mean? You just don't know. And I hear about the babies that happen here in town. It does happen here a lot, unfortunately. People also have this idea of like, then they do with dogs and they do it with little ones where they're like, I'm just running in the gas station to pay for gas or whatever. And they've had to like show people like, again, it's over 100 degrees, or even when it's like 80 degrees, like it doesn't even have to be over 100 degrees, how fast your car heats up. You know what I mean? And which is a really cool thing that the dealerships and other places do, not just hospitals, where they actually show you demonstrations of like, look how fast your car will heat up, and your kid's in there, and you're not like, it might just be 5 minutes. Or people would do this thing of like, I'm going in the store for 5 minutes, or I got to just run in and grab a milk. And as it turns out, that's dangerous, and we have had, it actually happens so often here. I can't even tell you, but we do have people that will go and break windows to get kids and animals out of vehicles. It happens all the time because we can't figure out who is whatever. And there's a baby in there, or there's a little one in there strapped in, or a dog or something like, so people break windows to get them out. Like, it happens all the time, and it's horrible, but that's kind of the thing. And you have to think, like, I am in Vegas. We do have people that have like gambling addictions. So people do go, I'm just going to go in and spend my $10 that I got really quick, and I'm just going to leave the baby in the car. And it's just not a good situation. Years ago, I did meet a girl when I was a manager. I hired a girl. She was really great worker, awesome worker. And she comes from a rather bigger family in a way. And she's the oldest. And she told me one day, sitting down, talking to me, because I shared my experience about my baby. And so she shared that she had a sibling die from being left in the car. And her mom, driving a van, there's a lot of seats in the van. There's a bunch of kids in there, and they were all like under like 5, probably. They were all little kids. She was old enough to kind of remember this stuff. And here's all these little kids. Well, she also had cousins and stuff, and they came over to the cousin's house or whatever. And when they pulled up to get out of the house, she was tired, and she was pregnant, by the way. She was pregnant with the next one. And the little one was he was probably almost 2. I want to say, or it might have been 2, and they're still in a car seat and stuff like that. So, she had thought, cause he fell asleep. So nobody heard that he wasn't out of the car seat. She thought all the kids had gotten out, and everybody went inside, and everybody went in the house, and, and nobody noticed because somebody came out, and she thought everybody came in the house. It was just a complete mix up accident of like, it was nothing intentional. She didn't whatever. She literally thought everyone was unbuckled, unloaded, but the little one had been sleeping. And it might've been an hour later or however long later, she realized it, looked around the house. Where's her kid? Started panicking, calling 911, ran out to the vehicle, and here's her little one in there.
That's horrible.
And apparently from what she told me, it's so horrible of what they go through being in there. It's so terrible. She remembers because she was the oldest kid there, and she went out, and the fire department came, and the police came, and they blocked off the road, and CSI came, I'm sure, like everybody came, and they tried to give him medical attention because apparently when they had got out there, he was kind of still alive. But he was like, I mean, you hate to even think about it, but the baby was kind of melting in a way. Like, it's so like your insides, it's not good. We're not supposed to be out in that type of heat. And I mean, probably the vehicle could have easily been, I don't know, 130 degrees or so. Like, it was the summertime. I mean, easy. I'm sure it was really hot sitting in there. And so it was devastating. And at the time she was pregnant. And so she had to it was awful. And they went through like a bunch of stuff, and her mom has never gotten over it. Like, she was older and in her 20s and stuff. And I was like, yeah, you never forget.
Sure.
And she's like, but she was really big on like safety for kids and safety for babies and safety. And I was like, that's kind of how, unfortunately, how it becomes like a thing, like how we know things are dangerous, how we, whatever, like somebody has to go through
experience, it. Right. Lived experience.
But it's true. Like, you don't really think about it of like how many babies are left. And I knew a lot of people that were kind of judgmental towards other people about this. And then something would happen and they realized it could have easily been them. How many times has anyone gotten in their car to go anywhere, maybe they went to the store, maybe they went to somebody's house, maybe they went to work or wherever they were coming from. They're heading home. You know your route going home so well, you get into like a zone. You're just zoned out, just driving in autopilot, going home, and you know, maybe pull in your driveway, pull up in front of your house, pull in your garage, however you do your routine of going in there, shutting your car off and just going inside. Easily, your baby's not making any noise, your kid's not talking to you. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe there's now a lot of people have headphones on their kids with a tablet, you know, so they're quiet, you know, maybe they fell asleep. There could be lots of different things going on that the baby or little one is entertained and quiet, or they just fell asleep, and you just get in, not even thinking about like, hey, my kid's in the car, and go in to do your normal stuff. Put your shoes away, put your stuff away, put your purse away. Maybe you're putting groceries away, whatever you're doing, going in the house, doing your thing. And then even if it's only been like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on where you live, that 10, 15 minutes that's a lot of time for a little one sitting in the car when it's hot out. And then there's no air, there's no whatever, like it could be 10, 15 minutes could be a lot, could be too long, you know? So it easily could happen to anyone, like anyone. And, you know, and I hate the mom shaming about stuff, because I feel like it takes away from us informing each other, where we could be like working together, where moms could be sharing their stories of what their experience was and how to be like more preventative to other, you know, people. And, you know, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I feel like we should be working as a team to like just be safe for kids. Like that's our goal. But it does happen. And yes, they do have to live with that for the rest of their lives, like of what a mistake it was. Like, it's not like they did it on purpose, but they just, you know, and it's exhausting. You also have to think when you have a baby, how tired you are, you know, especially if they're
that's a huge factor.
You know? Yeah, they're eating every 4 hours or a couple hours, and you have to get up in the middle of the night and feed them. And now you had to go to the store for food for yourself. You come home and you don't even think, because you're so exhausted coming in your house, that you left your kid in the car. Yes. And then by the time you think about it, maybe you're set up for feedings or maybe whatever, where you're like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be feeding my baby. Or there could be something that clips in of like your normal day-to-day, whatever. And then you're like, where is my baby? You know what I mean? And then you notice, but it's like, it's complete, like, just, you don't even think about it, you know? And
yeah, you think about like the mental exhaustion and your mental state and brain fog in those early days when your baby is not sleeping at all, comparative to like, now my kids sleep. That's great. And of course I still have moments of brain fog and all of those things, but there is nothing that compares to that tiredness and how your body functions under that level of exhaustion in those early days.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think depending on where people live and whatever, they should look up, you know, go online, see if the hospitals have anything of like, they always have like safety courses. Sometimes they'll do stuff where it's like CPR and, you know, stuff for if your kid's choking or baby's choking, that kind of thing, which is all great stuff to know, all good stuff to know. My kid choked so many times, like, oh my God, I'm surprised I didn't die from a heart attack when he was like not even 1 year old. Like, it was so scary. Solid foods is so scary. So scary because they don't know what they're doing. And so I mean, those are all things like I think somebody should totally look up, like just Google in your area, because they have them where you can learn about your car seat, where you can see like the different tricks and whatever, because I know they're constantly updating them. I see new information, you know, to keep reminder that your baby's in the back seat or whatever, which is another thing. Our baby's in the back seat. So you're up front by yourself and you get out kind of whatever. And your baby's in the back. So whatever you need to put in the back seat to remind yourself, like, that's part of your normal autopilot self, you know, whatever it is, whether you got your sunglasses and your sunglass case is back there with the baby, or, you know, like it could be anything, just whatever it is, just go ahead and get that. But definitely I would tell people to go look up from their state and go look. Like I said, dealerships here do it and the hospitals do it too, but I'm sure there's lots of resources out there that to make it, especially for the area, because people, you know, the areas, depending on where you are, I mean, the weather might not get as hot as here, but there's still stuff that happens, you know?
Absolutely.
So I liked your shoe thing. I would have never thought about like you're driving with one foot with your shoe and then your other one you just put in the back seat.
Yeah. You're not gonna walk very far in one shoe. Like I think that one is probably because purse is good too, but I still have left my purse in the car before and been like, oh, my purse, I forgot my purse, which shows you why it would be so easy to. You just get distracted. How many times have you driven someplace and been like, wow, I don't recall just driving just then. Like I zoned out that whole drive. How did I just survive that? I stop at like stoplights. I mean, clearly you did. It's just a true testament of how your brain works and how you do things. So yeah, I leave my purse in the car, but I'm not gonna walk off with one shoe very far. I'm gonna be like, oh, that's off. Like I need to.
No, that's true.
Really,
like
I think it's probably I think it's one of the most effective ones because you're not going to wander off very far with one shoe. And in the summer, you're probably wearing a lot of, it's easy to do too, because in the summer when you're more at risk to do it, you're wearing a lot of like flip flops and sandally, quick fling off, fling on type shoes anyways. It's no harm, no foul. It's easy. Just plop it off, put it back there next to your baby and yep.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah. I've heard like different things where I'm like, that's smart. Like, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then, they were like, they had talked about almost like not doing that anymore, not like doing their little like info things that they do. But then they were like, no, because of all the new technology with like car seats and all this stuff. But they were like, no, we're still going to do it because it's like, you just don't know. Like not everybody can get that certain car seat or whatever. And I think they were trying to make it more like that was kind of the way of car seats where it's like, you can tell when they're unbuckled and stuff like that. So it's like, even if you're driving down the road and your kid unbuckles, it's like your alarm goes off. Which is not a bad idea because when they learn how to get that off and you're driving, like, my parents,
it's highly beneficial. Yeah. I think that like, honestly, in my field of work, sometimes it's even older, like toddler age children that might still be in 5-point harnesses. But, I serve children with intellectual developmental disabilities. And so often from like a behavioral aspect, they have a common habit of unbuckling and getting free in the car. And so there is products in there, but again, they're always like aftermarket products. Like they're ones that aren't actually functionally built into the car seat, which always has some risk too of, does this then detract from the car seat safety because it's a product you're adding in that wasn't part of that, wasn't the build. So yeah, if car seats just built that in as a standard and it was, a built into the car seat piece so that it's been crash tested and safety tested and that in using this product. I mean, some of the times the families are having to weigh okay, yes, it might detract with some of the safety. It hasn't been safety tested, but it's also unsafe for my child to unbuckle in the middle of like, the interstate as I'm driving. So I might just risk the fact that I'm adding this additional thing. It's like one of those things that right now they have to make a judgment call on. And if car seat as a standard just had those types of things where it did alert if they were unbuckling or there was some safety mechanisms built in with that were also tested against the crash testing and the, did it become a barrier to like, first responders being able to get them out and things like that, then I'm all for it because then, okay, like then you don't have to pick the lesser of two evils, really. You can just pick what's going to be safe for your kid.
Yeah.
I almost wonder when you're talking about the casinos, like places like that you identify as higher risk for like gambling with your behavior, riskier behavior. I'm almost for how much money pours into the casinos and everything like that. Like if they had one of their staff literally be somebody who is like a parking lot kind of person who's really looking for all sorts of things like theft in the parking lot, a security measure, but also looking for things like you left your kid in the car to go inside and gamble.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure other than theft and people doing bad things in parking lots, the parking lots, yeah,
other things in the parking lot too.
other things that you should be doing in the parking lot. Don't rob somebody or beat them up or something. But we do have cameras in all of our parking lots in Vegas because that is one of the things that they actually look for. So they have a security guard that is their job, is looking at all the cameras all over the place, counting the parking lot, counting the outside of the buildings, and whatever, the road sometimes, depending on which casino and how big it is or whatever. But they have even the ones that are not on the strip, all of them, even our local casinos, have a person that normally rides around sometimes on like a bicycle. And that's what they do. They patrol the parking lots. And yes, they do find, I've heard from working on the casinos, they do find dogs, they do find children, they do find old people. You wouldn't believe, of like people with that much of an addiction, of like somebody that's unwell, that, that they just kind of leave them in the car. They do find them. And they do keep an eye. Like even if you have your car on, they'll keep an eye, like how long you've been there. They'll kind of circle around and see, and they'll come check on you sometimes. Depending on where you are, they'll come by and be like, are you okay? Do you need help? Are you lost? Do you need assistance? But they're pretty good about it. So I will say that is one thing they do up that a lot. And we do have every so often there's bad stuff that happens in a parking lot. Like somebody got robbed. Something like that will happen, but thankfully we do have cameras, and that person normally get caught really fast. Like I don't even think they hardly make it out of the parking lot because security seen you. Like, don't be stupid. Out of any of the places, like, I lived in a small town and then I came to Vegas, and I'm like, you're in Vegas. Like literally there is cameras everywhere. Like when you watch the movies and the TV shows and you think it's an exaggeration, they are literally watching you everywhere. They watch, they might not be in the bathroom with you, but they seen when you went in and they know what time you went out. Like they'll see you if you change your clothes and you come out with a new hairstyle or something. They see all that. Like they really do pay attention to things that you're like, why, how, but I've seen some really interesting things working in casinos. So it's kind of like, I see why they have to pay attention to that, because there's just weird things, people like to do random things. So it's just one of those, but you're right. They do have cameras. They do have security that goes around. So, I mean,
that actually makes me feel better hearing that. Cause I was like, if they don't already, they really should. And I didn't even think about what you said with like leaving elderly or, maybe people who are just vulnerable, like someone who's in a vulnerable population of any type, and just leaving them in the car to go gamble. Gambling really is an addiction for so many people. I mean, there are people who don't have, I've gone to the casino before, and I'm, the ones here in New York State, and I'm not I'm not addicted to gambling. I could go once every few years and be fine. But of course, there's a lot of people who, that's their like day in and day out.
Yeah. And you can, in Vegas, you can cash your paychecks. So people might get paid like, Friday or whatever, and they happen to pick up their grandma or something from the home, or, you don't know, or, or their kid from the daycare. And they're like, what, I'm just going to run in this casino really quick to cash my check. And then they don't think like, that's probably not a good idea. But, on the other side of that is there is a lot of people, because obviously you have to be 21 and, whatever, but there's a lot of people that do bring their kids into the casino and have their kids like either sitting on their lap or sitting on the floor as they're like at a machine. And like, they all get caught. That doesn't last very long. They normally tend to be, more foreigners kind of do it, like not knowing this is the way that our gambling's a little bit different. Like other countries, it's not the same as it is, here where you have to be a certain age and all this stuff, but they get them fast. Like I've seen people like escorted or whatever, but then that's another thing is people leaving kids up in hotel rooms when they come here. And people don't know this, but we have a nanny service that you can call. So you can be on vacation, bring your kids to Vegas, and you can actually get a nanny to come to your room and make sure your kids or whatever, they feed them. Sometimes certain ages, I think they take them out places and do stuff with them and stuff like that. We do have that available. That's actually I think almost all hotels have like a number that you can call, and they're like legit people like that are hired through the casinos or whatever. Yeah. That you can totally pay for hourly to have them come, whether you have a baby or like a bigger kid. Yeah, they do have that, which I was like quite amazed because like I didn't know any of that stuff, but I was told that when I was spotting kids like on the casino floors, and I would get tell security, and they were like, it's okay for you to go up to somebody and tell them, by the way, you can get someone to watch your kid while you're gambling. Like, because we want to keep things safe and how we're supposed to be, like, you know what I mean? Like gaming licenses, like everybody's licensed, the security guards are, everything has to be a certain way or places get shut down and there's no business and there's no whatever. So they do things in a very like, wow, like, so somebody's had to deal with it before, you know what I mean?
If only now, full circle, if only all of these freestanding birth centers and all of these other places operated similarly, with everybody having to have these licensing and credentials or you get shut down. Can you imagine? Right? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. The funniest
thing. That makes too much sense. That makes too much sense. Why would we do it about like the gift of life and humans and keeping women safe? Why would we do that? That's too logical.
No, that's so true. It's sad to think about, like, when you go get your haircut, when you go get your nails done, even for like a manicure, a pedicure, not even anything like acrylic or whatever, they have more training. They have more hours. They have a license. They are licensed through your state. Like, they can get their license taken away. You can go after them. Like, there's like a whole thing about them. You can turn them into the board and they lose their license and never get it again. Like, but yeah, we have midwives and doulas that are just kind of like, hey, I'll take your money, which they make a lot more than somebody doing your hair and nails. Like, what? That deal with the life of your baby surviving you. Like, I don't know. Somewhere in there is just a big hole that should be filled. That's terrible. I hear of so many babies here and so many toddlers here because you hook them up, and it's like, it's almost one of those things of like when your kid starts getting big enough to almost teach them how to unhook themselves out of the car. It sounds really terrible, but it's almost like necessary when you live in a place like this, when it's so hot. So your little one can unstrap themselves and like learn to open up the door, but hopefully you don't have child safety lock on. But it's kind of like that. You just don't know. And
you don't.
It's terrible. It happens here. I don't know. In the summer, it's almost like every couple months, every few months, we hear about a baby. Like, it happens quite often. It's terrible. Like, some years are better. We don't have as many, but then some of them are really bad. And, you know, and it's horrible, just horrible. And everybody that deals with it, the police, the fire department, everybody is like devastated. You know, we've had a couple that do end up going to the hospital and stuff like that, but they're on like life support and stuff like that. And it's really bad.